Hello again. So I hope you guys got to visit the vendor booths. You can check those out the entire time of the conference, as well as the networking option. It's a great way to connect with like-minded moms and employers. And one of the things I love so much about this next panel that we're going to kick off is that it's sponsored by Vivi, who, as you know, started off the day as our keynote, and they're reinventing employer-sponsored childcare for today's families and employers by providing exceptional childcare and early education. BB partners with employers of all sizes to help them support working parents and build a more family inclusive future of work. And as we know, for employers, especially if those are you are joining today from an HR framework or on behalf of your company and you're wondering what you can do, one of the great talking points that we have for employers is that there's incredible ROI associated with offering employee sponsored childcare, including enabling companies to attract and retain talent. It is definitely the market right now for job seekers. The market's hot. These are the things that flexible benefits mean so much to caregivers, and companies that do not take this into consideration are going to be at a great disadvantage. And when companies provide affordable, accessible childcare to their employees, women, and other vulnerable populations, they're less likely to leave the workforce and more inclined to pursue career growth opportunities. And when we think about it, childcare still remains not affordable. 7 out of 10 families struggle to afford childcare. This is something that's the talk when whether you're at school, you're at the parent pickup line, at the grocery store, within your friends. We're all struggling with the rising cost of inflation and trying to understand how we're going to afford childcare. And that's nearly 10% of the average family's income. And I know this is what I'm so excited about this next panel about what working parents and caregivers need from employers and how to get there, presented by Vivi. It's going to hit on all of these talking points and more that you can take back to you as an individual or as an employer to encourage your company to offer what we need in today's society. So joining me on stage is going to be Stephanie LeBlanc Godfrey. She is the head of global inclusion at Google. She is a powerhouse and someone I am so excited to bring up with me.
Thank
Stephanie,
you.
how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm great. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for giving us those stats, right? We need to know. We need to know these things. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. It will be great. Let me turn it over to you.
Awesome. So thank you, everyone, for joining us and welcome to this discussion. As Kristen mentioned, this specific conversation is presented by Vivi, and it's specifically us talking about what working parents and caregivers need from employers and how to get there. So as she said, my name is Stephanie LeBlanc Godfrey. I'm going to be your moderator today. And this topic hits so close to home for me personally. Not only am I a mom of 3, but I'm also the global head of inclusion at Google. This means I eat, sleep, and breathe the lived experience of being a working parent and a caregiver, while also working in service of this very community in the form of strategy and programming, to ultimately lead to, retention efforts and sentiments of inclusion and belonging for parents and caregivers at their company. And so to meet the needs of parents and caregivers, it's critical, understatement, that it's critical that employers, but also the designers that are behind programs and policies and processes that touch these communities, are inclusive, progressive, and realistic. And so I want to thank Mother Honestly, and especially Vivi and Indeed, for bringing this amazing panel together to talk about this topic. And to bring this topic to life, I want to welcome our 3 powerhouse panelists joining me today. So we have Lauren Hobbs, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Vivi, Audrey Goodson-Kingo, who's the Editor-in-Chief for Mother Honestly, and Casey Hassick, who's the VP of Global Human Resources for Indeed. And so before we jump into the conversation, let's do them some justice and give some introductions. So let's start with you, Lauren. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, Stephanie. It's so great to be here. Thank you again to the Mother Honestly team and just everyone in the audience. I mean, I think that, yes, I'm the CMO of Vivi, but I think more importantly for this audience, I'm the very proud and sometimes very tired mother of a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son.
While we work out those technical difficulties, Audrey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Audrey Goodson-Kingo. I'm the editor-in-chief at Mother Honestly as of January of this year. I'm very excited to be talking to everyone. This is my passion. Working moms are my passion. I am a working mom. I have a 6-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. We live in New York City here in Harlem in our little apartment, which you can see about half of right now.
Thanks for that. I am reporting live from my daughter's room right now, and she's trying to see all this fun stuff behind you. So definitely understand the backgrounds, right? Casey, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I am Casey Hassick. I'm super happy to be here as well. Just a little bit about me. I am the mom of 2 preteens, a 6th grader. I have a 6th grader. Uh-oh, I'm having issues too. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. So I'm the mom of 2 daughters. I have a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. So like many of you, I'm in the throes of preteen. Our life is crazy and full and sassy and messy and beautiful all at the same time. But I'm also the vice president of HR at Indeed, where our mission is to help people get jobs. It was great to see all of those clips beforehand. I've been at Indeed for about 8 months. So also like many of you, I left a job and started a job in the middle of a pandemic, which is a whole thing. But I've been in high tech and HR for the last 25 years. And I'm thrilled to be here. We're based in Austin, Texas, and I'm excited to be here, one, as a working mom, and two, because this is something that I love to do for a living as well. So happy to be here.
Awesome. So we should definitely talk about the 6th grader life.
It's a lot
after this. But, this panel brings together so many aspects, like I said, living, breathing, and struggling in the context of being a working mom and supporting women. I'd love for you to each kind of share with your audience, like your personal why on why this topic is so important to you. So Casey, want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I could talk for hours on this, by the way. As I was thinking about this question, I was sort of reflecting, but really, I think this topic has been my life story. When I was a new mom, really feeling like I could do it all for a very short period of time. I had a more experienced mom say to me, listen, you won't be able to do it all. And I remember thinking, this can't be, right? And it affected me in a really big way, because personally, I really deeply wanted to be an awesome mom. And I also loved what I did. But the fact is, the juggle between motherhood and career has been hard, impossible at times. And the sacrifice, I think, for myself and my family, there have been times when my husband has had to leave his job in order to support us. And I've had to lean on family members and friends and so on. And I think that needs to change. So I feel like being a part of the conversation today is a part of the evolution, I think, that we have to see in this space. So I feel lucky to get to be here, one, to use the voice as a mom. And I feel lucky to get to be here because a part of what I do as an HR professional every day really can be a part of this change.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's bring Lauren back. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you and also why this topic is of particular importance. You're on mute.
Sure.
Oh, no, it's still happening.
No. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna.
All right, so we will keep it going while we work on technical difficulties, rolling with it. Still in 2022, technology does not always work with us. So Audrey, let's start with you. The news and statistics really drive this, deficit narrative when it comes to women, when it comes to working moms. And that could leave us, feeling both depressed and hopeless. But in this moment when, women are poised to rejoin the workforce in mass, what are some more positive forces working in our favor? And how do moms empower themselves to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question right now, right? I mean, we've all been through some stuff. It's been a rough couple of years for all of us, myself included. I'm happy to talk about that at some point. I was the editor-in-chief of workingmother.com, and I had to leave my job, and I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post that went pretty viral that was titled, "I was the editor-in-chief of Working Mother and I couldn't hack working motherhood." And so I have been in the struggle with everyone, as much as everyone else, going through the same things that everyone else has been going through, even though I, ostensibly knew, the legal issues at hand and the opportunities that are available. And still, I really struggled. But I think the good news about that, and the good news for working moms, and I think this is what I hear talking to a lot of us, is that struggle can be clarifying, right? So we all, I think, have looked at the past couple of years, and we've taken some pretty important lessons, both in our personal lives and in our work lives too. I just wrote a piece for Parents Magazine that was published in the March issue, and the title of it was "After the Breaking Point," and it was about our mental health struggles that working moms, I think Blessing gave a really great stat about that, about how, surveys show about 50% of us say we're really struggling with that. And I think we're now looking at how we repair and how we move forward. And I think for many of us, it's about boundaries. And we're really seeing that, we cannot do it all. And we had been trying to do it all even before the pandemic. And we've been putting ourselves last for a long time. Our health, our mental health, but also our physical health. I don't know about you guys, but I'm as guilty of anyone as skipping the checkups and skipping the dentist appointments when it doesn't work with my calendar, skipping the workouts. And so I've talked to a lot of moms, and I think we're realizing that we cannot do that anymore. We physically cannot sustain that pace. And I think a lot of us also looked and saw, hey, my marriage isn't as equitable as I thought it would. How can I work on that? I thought it was. How can I work on that? My work pace is unsustainable. What can I do about that? So I think the good news is individually, we're all kind of reassessing where we stand and making choices to really put ourselves first. But I think also it's been clarifying, struggle has been clarifying for companies, right? Too, right? Like Charlie had some really great stats about how companies are realizing childcare is pretty darn important to their bottom line. It's pretty darn important to making sure their workers can come in and can show up at work. One thing I take heart from is I was recently writing a piece, and I saw a Willis Towers Watson survey that said 30% of workers are looking at expanding their childcare subsidies, but also their backup childcare as well. And that's in addition to the almost 30% who had already done it. So there's a really growing interest among companies, I think particularly leading companies, at boosting those benefits for their employees. So that's good. And I think also we have a lot of power right now. Working moms are really in the driver's seat because of the tight labor market. We can ask for the flexibility we need in ways we really couldn't before. We can ask for remote work in ways we really couldn't before. And we can, ask for that higher salary, ask for that pay we deserve, ask for the paths to promotion, the actual positions that will put us in the right place for getting ahead. So I think the good news is we've all kind of seen the light, and we can kind of start driving in the direction we want to go a little better.
Yeah, I love that. I think we've all, like to your point, went through that self-assessment of what is and isn't working for us anymore. And while we knew it prior to COVID, we still operated in it. And now this has given us no choice but to make changes. And then how that shows up for the employer is they can no longer ignore it, right? It can no longer be deprioritized for other things because they're seeing the impact of not, putting that focus on the forefront. So Casey, let's talk about Indeed, the #1 job site in the world, over 250 million unique visitors every month. I mean, Indeed is in such a unique position where they employ thousands of people globally, which means that they need to meet the needs of their working parents. But then they're also advising companies, looking for candidates and matching them with people looking for work. So I wonder, from your perspective, can you share what you see as working to support parents in the world of work and the job search arena that you're in?
Yeah, you're right. We have a really cool position. We sort of have this unique front row seat at what, millions of job seekers want and need. Yet I have to think about every day what sort of works for our, almost 12,000 employees. But I actually love sort of Audrey's setup here, because I think even some of the things that we're seeing work at Indeed were some of the reasons I decided to come here. So I think, as a testament, as a working mom who has different needs today than I did even when my kids were young, some of these things that we're hearing employees and job seekers say are working are certainly really relevant for me. So there's a couple of things I would say. I think first, sort of this human-centric culture is so critical. Having a manager that listens, a culture that's understanding and empathetic, and all of those things, non-judgment, become really important. I know when I was interviewing at Indeed, I just happened to be at a point in my life where my kids need more of me. This preteen thing, Stephanie, as you mentioned, is real. And so I was looking for a place that the culture felt like I was going to get to show up and be me, and they were going to meet me where I was. And so I think across the board, we're hearing employees definitely say that that's important. The other thing I think is so important right now, which is not a surprise, is leave programs. At Indeed, we offer a couple of things which are really cool. Open PTO, we do this thing called U Day, which is a monthly day off where the entire company doesn't work on that day. And it's just a day to rest and rejuvenate and reset. Frankly, it's my favorite benefit. I've never had this benefit in my life, and it's a really big deal for me right now. But other things like parental leave, we've also done some really cool things that we've heard great feedback on, like flex work programs, where you have the option of taking maybe unpaid leave or a reduced work schedule. So that's another one that I think is working really well. And then the last one I would share that is really new for us, but I just love it, is we've seen some really good feedback on non-traditional family forming support. We've just launched a partnership with Maven that starts to really offer support for families through pregnancy and surrogacy and adoption and some of that. And we're getting really great input from our caregivers and our parents and our newly forming parents and family community. That's a really great benefit as well.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioning the life cycle, right? And what that looks like from the moment that you're maybe thinking or not even thinking about starting a family, all the way to being part of the sandwich generation and having to manage your own kids, and then as well as your parents. All right, so we have Lauren back. And Lauren, I would love for you to introduce yourself, but I also have a question to tee up to you. So working at VB, it's such a great resource for companies. And many of them may not realize the level of benefit that, they can provide in supporting working parents. So where are we seeing companies miss the mark in addressing the care crisis, and where are we starting to see some success?
Yeah. Hi. Hopefully my tech difficulties are behind me. Nothing like a Friday afternoon complete computer sounds really
All good. All good.
Place. So I'm Lauren Hobbs. I'm the CMO of Vivi. I'm the very proud and tired mother of a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. Like everyone has said, I live this from a very personal and professional standpoint. And I think, Casey really nailed it. I think we produced a caregiving playbook this past fall with tons of research and data, both from the employer and employee side. And I think that the best companies are just listening right now really intently to their employees. And what we found from that caregiving playbook is people, this is not rocket science, but the biggest things that parents need are flexibility, benefits, and culture. And those three things hand in hand, I think, are the things that really make a difference. And if you don't have one of those three legs of the stool, the other two kind of don't matter as much. And so I think flexibility for us and for companies in the best sense means, a one size fits one approach. The flexibility that Casey needs for her teenage children is not the same flexibility that I need for my younger children, and is not the same flexibility that would work in a non-office environment. The benefits that people need are true benefits, unfortunately, and I wish they could, but apps cannot take care of a child. And the culture that people need is a true culture of listening. And I think where companies and employees miss the mark is not understanding that every single individual has a responsibility and can contribute to that culture. It's not just HR's responsibility to intuit every single thing that every employee needs. And so I think personally, just thinking of yourself at every turn as a potential advocate for not only yourself, but other working parents, and that you can start really small. I mean, I think we very much pride ourselves at Vivi by working with companies of all sizes, and realizing that every company is on their own journey of whether they're 50,000 people and have an active ERG, or they're just starting to really think about these types of benefits. Starting anywhere is a start. And so it can start with one person, and it can start with one child.
You had a great summation around what's important: flexibility, benefits, and culture. I really love that. And that kind of ties into my next question around return to office, where we need flexibility, benefits, and culture to kind of shape it in a way that makes sense and that aligns with what we need. So we know that one of the main concerns that we're hearing top of mind right now is companies are enforcing return to office, and that doesn't always align with the childcare situation that we've had to, step into for the past 2 years. So, Lauren, could you kind of continue on and talk about what options for those roles that must be in person or frontline facing,
Yeah.
And job sharing?
Yeah. So, I mean, this gets back to that flexibility piece, and just that some careers are inherently less what we think of as traditionally flexible. And my background is in the hospitality industry. So when I had my first child, it was like tons of late nights. I had a boss who didn't have children and was an operator at heart. And we work with a lot of healthcare companies at Vivi now. And so it really comes back to a team approach around, a benefits provider, an HR leader, and employees all thinking about what actually works for this type of workforce. And what works for a technology company is not going to work for a company that has a large swath of frontline workers, or factory, or healthcare frontline. And so what we've tried to do at Vivi is flexibly meet all of those needs across a suite of products. So Care Cash is a product that really often addresses more of those needs on the front line. So it's a financial reimbursement program, and it allows for employees to choose their own care. So whether that is a neighbor, or their mother-in-law, or their mom, or a previously existing babysitter, to utilize that trusted network for backup babysitting on a moment's notice. And that's going to be really different than an employee who needs a more traditional on-site daycare setup. And so by allowing employers to access a suite of different needs to then allow their employees to choose is something that I think is just so important, and gets back to that conversation and listening, and just really thinking about what are your goals as a company, and what do your people need at different times. And back to Casey's point or Audrey's point around having older children, there's tutoring needs for those older children that are different than for younger children.
I was going to add on, Stephanie, if you don't mind. I just in listening to Lauren and the question, I think this is a really interesting time because as I reflect on this as an HR professional, it feels a little bit to me like this is the start of 2 years ago when the transition to home was so hard for many of us. And now it feels like the transition back to work is equally as hard. And I was going to share that even in doing what I do, which is, to have a job in HR at a great size company. Last Monday was going to be my very first day back in the office, and I was super excited. And Sunday night, I looked at my calendar to see sort of what it was all going to look like, and I panicked because I realized that I had not taken into account a commute time, which happened to eat into the time that my kids get up and we eat breakfast and I get them to school. We happen to not have childcare right now. My husband and I are sort of toggling, and I have a great support system of other working parents and moms and so on for now. But I realized when I looked at my calendar, this is impossible. I actually physically can't do all the things I do as a mom and as a parent, as a caregiver, like pick up from school and take to dance or basketball. And then, by the way, I happened to have some night meetings at night. And so I couldn't even figure out how to feed my kids. And so anyway, I threw the whole thing out the window. I did not go into the office, which, I'm so grateful that we do have that flexibility right now. But it just reminded me, oh my gosh, this is going to be another pretty significant transition for us, I think as parents and caregivers.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so important to have those moments where you experience it yourself, and then it makes you a more empathetic leader. And I mean, the vice versa. We can all support each other in just having those moments of grace, I think, and realizing that what works one day might not work the next day.
One of the things that has come up while we focus and center the needs of parents and caregivers, because it is a priority, right? We know it qualitatively and quantitatively that needs to be the focal point. But we are also hearing from those folks who aren't parent and caregivers. And so as employers, how do we bring equity to the space? How do we address the needs that aren't particularly parent and caregiving needs in that return to office to support all of our employees while we have this rightly so laser focus on parent and caregiver benefits? Anyone want to take that on? That was an audience question.
I'm happy to jump in on that one real quick.
All right, Audrey, go for it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that flexibility is not a parental benefit. Flexibility is a benefit for everyone. Flexibility is a benefit for people who have aging parents. Flexibility is a benefit for people who have their own health complications or just passions outside of work they'd love to explore more time on. So I think I think part of selling, and I think about this a lot, like broader, as we sell paid leave, for example, is not just paid leave for parents, it's paid family leave. When we sell it at the federal level so that everyone wants to sign up and participate and support it. So I just think it's really important as we go forward and have these conversations when people are like, hey, that's not fair, you're getting something. I think the point I would make to those people is this is a benefit that you can take advantage of, and everybody's going to need it at some point. We're all going to need flexibility in our lives. We're all going to need leave every now and then to take care of ourselves or others. So that's what I would say personally, but I know Lauren and Casey work in HR, so they probably have a better answer, but that's my response.
Yeah, I agree, Audrey. I think one of the things that we're seeing or we're hearing a little bit more on now, I mean, again, I would have said sandwich generation, but if we're just talking about sort of non-parental leave, I think we're hearing a lot from employees that say, hey, what kind of leaves or flexibility can you offer to us if it's not about parenting, right? So taking care of a sick parent is something that I think is coming up a lot. And so I think it's one of the things that's out there as a trend that we're going to continue to hear more and more about. I've certainly been there. Of course, I've taken parental leave, but I've had to take time off to care for my father that was ill for some time. And so what companies can do, I think, around looking at benefits in that space is going to be really interesting and something that we, will continue to watch.
I think also to add to that, right? When policies are created for our most marginalized communities, we've seen time and time again that everyone is able to benefit. And so the support and the things that we roll out for parents and caregivers, it's going to impact anyone, to your point, Audrey, who have their own personal health issues or any other types of things that they don't need to divulge, because the process has been built around having conversations, meaningful conversations with managers around, hey, something's going on and I need the space and the flexibility to do that. And that's already in place because we've solved for our most marginalized communities. And so just sort of switching gears into resources, another audience question. Is there a resource that tells parents, what companies offer childcare subsidies as folks are doing their research to get back into the workforce, or even, pendulum swing somewhere else that is more friendly and supportive of their lived experience? What are some places that they can go to check that out? Lauren.
So the SCIM recently has been working on a campaign called Show Us Your Leave, and it's mainly focused on paid leave, but a lot of companies, if they have a childcare benefit, are adding that into that campaign. So that's an amazing list to check out. I know, indeed, I'll hand it over to Casey because you have some incredible resources. But I also think I'd love to hear from your point of view, Casey, as an HR leader. Like, I think the other thing is you can start to look those things up, but another important thing to address is, when is it okay to ask about those things in an interview process? Because I think that's changing a lot too, and that's another important part of advocacy.
Yeah, I think that's right. I actually, we are hearing more and more from our job seekers that what they want actually in a job description is to share things like, what are the hours I have to work? Is there an opportunity or option for flexibility? So I actually think there is a bit of a demand right now for people to see that up front. So then when they get the job, they're not having to worry about, whether or not that flexibly fits within their life. They can just worry about the work that they have to do. The other thing I was going to share, because I think this is a super cool resource, but on Indeed.com, one of the features that we have is that you can actually search mom-friendly or parent-friendly to find jobs that will be sorted by benefits that maybe meet that criteria. So I think that's just another resource, and I think it shows sort of where the world's going around this space. And I actually think it's likely some of the result of COVID, which is a good thing.
On that part of resources on Indeed, I wonder, for the employer side of things, what is available for employers, whether, they're at 50,000 and hopefully they've got, more support in place, but maybe smaller companies that are just building up. How do they offer benefits for employees that are meaningful, that will have an impact? What's a model for creating these benefits? Or, I hate to use the word checklist, but like, what are some of the top priorities that they should be thinking of around building benefits for parents and caregivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably what we've talked about before. I think it comes down to just listening to sort of what your employees are saying. I mentioned that we do surveys. You saw a clip at the beginning of the session of our inclusion resource group, which is for parents and caregivers. I think that's another really great opportunity for employers to seek input from their employees. We've done things at Indeed like global Q&As, where again, we're opening up communication and conversation between our leaders and our employees to really seek what's the need of their employees. So I actually think that's first and foremost. We also at Indeed run a work happiness survey that is used by some of our employers, and that's a really great, or offers really great insight into employees and what their needs are. So I think from an employer perspective, it's at least one that we think about a lot. It really comes down to listening, right? And being really curious on what needs do you see across your employee population that you can start building programs that will start, filling that gap.
Yeah. I mean, I think beyond that too, it's like listening with an actual intent or eye towards change, not just listening to say, great, we did that survey, but listening with an eye towards like, oh, maybe I truly don't know the answer, or likely the answer has really changed in the last 6 months or a year. And it might change again in 2 months. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for quick pulse surveys and kind of a combination of surveys and then deeper conversations, because you might have one individual who is a little bit more of a spokesperson, but I truly believe like behind almost every individual need is something greater that someone else might not be quite as confident speaking up about. So I think, yeah, it gets back to that like personal advocacy, but then really encouraging employees to work together to find other resources amongst themselves and then bring them to the forefront.
Audrey, do you have some resources or just thoughts on what employers can do in this space?
Yeah, a lot. So I'll try to be brief. One thing I think about a lot, and this just goes back to my own experience with as what I've covered as a reporter and my own personal experience, is the importance of managers. I think companies are coming up with a lot of great benefits now, which is good news, expanding their benefits and policies. I think it's really important they make sure those messages are communicated all the way down the line. In my personal circumstance, my company was the right size that I could have taken the FFCRA leave that Congress passed. But my company president said, "Can you get all your work done in 2 days?" And I was like, "No, I can't. That's the point of paid leave, actually, of taking leave." So, I think when those benefits are available, but people aren't comfortable taking them, or when they're getting mixed messages from their managers, that's something I think companies really need to be cognizant of and make sure it's filtering down so people feel comfortable. But also, I think another thing that, Blessing and I talk a lot about at Mother Honestly is how can companies help us on the home front? Because we know so many of our challenges now for working parents come from the home front, right? We have so much on our plates that we cannot handle it all. And how can they help us with that? And yes, flexibility is a big part of that. But I think you're also seeing companies come up with, just innovative solutions, platforms, concierge services like Maven and other things that really help take that load off. So we don't sit on the phone with the insurance company for 3 hours one day. I think ways that companies can really help make our lives more efficient is huge. And so I would love to see more companies step up and do that. And if I can give a shameless plug for us here at Mother Honestly, we're really thinking about that and trying to do that. And toolkits that we're creating, that'll just the content we're creating that basically just is going to help answer, like, if you have a question about childcare, here you go. Here's everything you need to know about deciding between a nanny or a childcare setting. Here's everything you need to know about, outsourcing your cleaning or your laundry or whatever those questions may be, or balancing that load with your spouse. So that's what we're trying to do at Mother Honestly. And I think the more that companies can help people answer those questions, I think that's going to be a growing benefit source and a growing thing companies think about going forward.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is not only the systemic changes that are happening through benefits, we also then need manager competency so that they can create a space for employees to name the fact that they need to use those benefits and not risk an impact to their career. But through the Mother Honestly toolkits, crowdsourcing of information and just like community building to know I'm not the only person with this question. I'm not the only person that needs an answer, but I don't have time to even think of what to search, where to search, and whether it's going to be quality information. And so what I'm hearing is that, you are all offering, a gap that we need filled in this space when we're doing all the things. And this is allowing us one less space of using, the limited brain power that we have each day. And so I really love that aspect of community building, crowdsourcing, and getting that information together. We're getting close to time. And so I'd love to hear from each of you, maybe starting with Lauren, on just what's your best career advice. We're all, working parents, working on our careers and wanting to be successful there, but then also wanting to be super intentional with how we show up for our family and the loved ones in our life. And so what are some final thoughts that you have to share with the audience around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've switched industries several times, and I think with each change, I've learned something really new, and now I'm at this place where I'm sort of working and living in the same world. But I think my best advice is just with every, there is no perfect job, there is no perfect scenario of how everything is going to magically come together, and so what I'm always trying to do, and what I think is a little bit more of a manageable thing rather than having like a set 5-year plan or like, this is my perfect goal, is just to constantly be tweaking and constantly be saying like, what's something that I want to make more time to do in my personal or professional life, and what's something that I want to leave behind in my next role. And just to kind of be always thinking about those incremental changes that you can make, and whether it be a personal or professional goal, to explore something, to explore a new skill, or to do a little bit less laundry, to just constantly be aware of those things that fill you up, and that they're, you're going to never stop changing, and those needs are going to never stop changing. So the more you can kind of live within the space that you're in, and make those small changes either within a job that you have or by making a move, I think just allows you to be a little bit more positive about kind of where you're at, and feel confidence in the ability to move forward, and to advocate for yourself. Again, I think it just comes back to that, to be your own best champion.
Awesome. Casey?
I was just thinking, that's a big question, Stephanie. I think the thing, maybe it's not career advice, but for me, it's just sort of being where I am. I feel like I had such clear goals when I was younger about what this career thing would look like. And then, of course, I had a family, and then these, children, and children need different things. And in the midst of all of it, everything just got really messy, and yet all good. And I kind of feel like if I had to give advice to myself right now, it would just be to do what you can do and sort of live in just what you can do, right? And I feel like even now, sort of 25 years into my career, with my kids getting a little bit older, there are still days that I think, oh, I've just ruined the whole thing. Kids, career, the whole thing. And then there are days that I think, oh, I'm so lucky. Everything's good. And so just allowing myself and allowing yourself the space to sort of be where you are, everything will be okay. And I think that's really important for us, because our lives are sometimes spinning with all of the things on our plate. So giving us a bit of space to just say it's going to be okay, I think is pretty important.
I think that's an affirmation we all need to write down, like right now. It will all be okay. And Audrey,
it will be okay. Our job will be okay. We will be okay.
And our kids will be okay. We're not going to screw them up.
That's right.
That's okay.
Yes. I love that. I think, gosh, I mean, mine would probably just be sort of a continuation of what Lauren and Casey already said, which is a common theme I keep coming back to. But it's just, I just encourage everyone to set boundaries and be firm about those boundaries and set them around whatever fills your cup. Really think intentionally about what makes you happy and what you're passionate about, whether that's at work or in your community or with your family, and put your time there. I've been trying the expression. This expression popped into my mind a couple days ago, and I've been trying to remind myself that not my circus, not my monkeys. Because particularly right now, on a serious note, there are a lot of things going on in the world because of the pandemic and everything else that need a lot of help, and we are smart, talented women who could really help. But there's only so much of all of us to go around. And so I try to remind myself again and again, not my circus, not my monkeys, and to really focus my time wisely. And this is mostly an affirmation than something that is put firmly into practice, but I'm trying.
Love that. Well, thank you for those imparting words of wisdom. I think we all kind of need that in the midst of so many things going on that we want to touch, we want to impact, but we're drained within our own circus, as you mentioned. So again, I want to thank you, Audrey, Lauren, Casey, for such a dynamic conversation with me today. I want to thank, obviously, Mother Honestly, Blessing, and Kristen for this amazing summit that they've put on. I want to remind everyone that there are VV toolkits pinned at the top so that you can look through those. We need the crowdsourcing of information so that we're not Googling everything. And so thank you. Enjoy the rest of the summit, and I will turn it back to Kristen.